This brief lecture focuses about the basic concepts of phonological theory. Now, let's come to the objectives of this short talk. So at the end of this brief lecture, the learners would be able to understand about phonology and identify the various phonological theories and its significance. Now, according to Parker and Riley in 2005, phonology is the study of the sound system of language, focusing the rules that govern pronunciation. Now, the word phonology, no, comes from the Greek word phone, which means voice. The study of phonology in the Western tradition goes back almost about 200 years to the early 1800s, when the European linguists began studying sound change by comparing the speech sounds in a variety of related languages. In modern phonology, the emphasis has been primarily on the psychological system that underlies production, and only secondarily on the actual physical articulation of speech. That's according to Parker and Riley in 2005. While Adams in 2011, he emphasized that phonology tells us, no, what sounds are in a language and how they do and can combine into words, and explains why certain phoneme features are important to identify a word. Therefore, phonology is the systematic pattern and organization of speech sound in a language and how sounds in a particular language will change. Now, the generative theory. This was developed by Noam Chomsky and Maurice Hale in the mid of the 20th century, and they posited that speakers of a language have mental representation of abstract sound units and rules for combining them, and this focuses on the rule-based derivation. Now, the key concepts of generative theory would include phonemes and some rules and derivations. Now, phonemes identifies as abstract mental units of sound that can be altered or replaced in speech without not changing the meaning of a word. For example, the p sound in pat and the v sound in bat are considered different phonemes because they can change the meaning of a word. Now, while it is true that the rules and derivations describe, no, how phonemes are transformed into actual speech sounds through a series of rules and derivations. Okay, we shall come to the phonological processes. Popular here are assimilation, deletion, and insertion. So when we come to assimilation, this pertains to the sounds becoming more similar to the neighboring sounds. For instance, when we say incredible, no, the end, the n sound in assimilates and becomes more like the k sound, incredible, no, making it easier to pronounce. Then we have deletion, the omission of sounds. Would also include vowel and consonant deletion, cluster reduction, and even syllable reduction. Then we come to insertion. So insertion is the addition of one or more phonemes, the speech sounds, into a word. Example, the word athlete is often pronounced with an extra "l" sound, becoming an athlete, which is an example of epenthesis or uh, insertion. So we will go to other key concepts of generative theory, um, specifically on the phonological rules. These rules would specify how phonemes, no, change in different linguistic contexts. Example, uh, the rule might state that in English, the sound becomes Z when it occurs between two vowels, as in roses. So the underlying and the surface forms, no, will distinguish between the underlying forms, the abstract representations, and surface forms, which is the actual speech sounds. Then we have the syllable structure. Um, this is exactly uh, defining the rules, no, governing the arrangement of consonants and the vowels within syllables. And then the natural phonology. This is proposed by Stampt and others, and they suggested that phonological processes in languages are governed by innate universal phonological principles. These principles are thought to reflect the natural tendencies of human speech production and perception, highlighting, no, even the innate phonetic tendencies. Now, we have also the optimality theory. This was introduced by Prince and Smolensky in the early 1990s, and they proposed that language phonology is shaped by the interaction of ranked constraints. So they posited that languages choose the optimal output given in a set of conflicting constraints. Now, what are the two main points of constraints? Okay, so we have here the markedness and the faithfulness. When we come to markedness, no, uh, this refers to the idea that some linguistic elements like sounds or features are considered more complex or less common in a language, while others are seen as simpler or more basic. While faithfulness pertains to the quality of staying true, uh, consistent, or shall we say, preserving the original form or meaning in linguistic contexts, such as in phonology or in translation. Now, it's about maintaining the fidelity or accuracy of something, like the pronunciation of words or the meaning of sentence. Now, we also have this feature geometry in phonology. Now, this focuses on the hierarchical organization of distinctive features in phonology, representing sounds in terms of features, the place of articulation, the manner of articulation, and the voicing. And this framework is useful for analyzing the sound patterns and rules within languages. Then we have the so-called government phonology. This was developed by William Harris, and this focuses on the relationships between phonological elements in a language, no, and how they are governed by a set of principles and rules. This government phonology emphasizes the role of government relations between segments, no, in the organization of the phonological rules. Then we have the autosegmental phonology. This was introduced by John Goldsmith, and this represents the phonological features as separate tiers, no, allowing for the analysis of phenomena like tone, stress, intonation, and vowel harmony. This also features, no, and has displayed a significant role in advancing our understanding of the structure of languages. Then we have this metrical phonology. This was developed again by Maurice Hale and Alec Marantz in the late 1970s and early 1980s. And this deals with the rhythm and stress patterns in language, proposing that stress patterns are governed by metrical grids. So this examines how syllables are organized into metrical feet, which are units of stress and timing. Then we have these different types of metrical feet, no? The iambic and the trochee. The iambic consists of two syllables, no? With the first one unstressed and the second one stressed. Example in is the word compare, no? So where the stress falls on the second syllable, compare, no? So we also have the trochee, which is the reverse of the iambic, with the first syllable stressed and the second one unstressed. Happy, no? Happy, where the stress falls on the first syllable, happy, no? Okay, so we have to look upon the overall considerations that in metrical phonology, this provides a framework for understanding the rhythmic and stress-related aspects of spoken language, which are crucial for communication, no? Poetry, and even in linguistic analysis. Then the dependency phonology. This was developed by John Anderson, a British linguist, and his colleagues in the 1980s. And this focuses on the relationships between phonological elements, emphasizing the hierarchical and dependent nature of phonological features. Now, it hasn't become as widely adopted as some other phonological theories, but it has contributed to the ongoing discussion on the exploration of linguistic theories and phonological phenomena. Now, we have the stratal optimality phonology. We have our popular linguists, John McCarthy, a prominent linguist in the field of phonology, which is considered as an extension of the um, OT, the optimality theory. So, this was developed in order to address certain challenges in the phonological theory. And the SOP, or the stratal optimality phonology, posits that phonological processes are divided into strata or levels, each with its own set of constraints and interactions. And this incorporates multiple layers or strata of phonological representations and constraints. Now, the last consideration is on the usage-based phonology. It doesn't have a single attributed developer. Now, researchers study how language users adapt their pronunciation and phonological patterns based on their interactions with others, their communicative needs, and the frequency of specific linguistic elements. Now, this usage-based phonology considers language as a dynamic system shaped by how people actually speak and interact. Now, the overall usage-based phonology offers a dynamic and data-driven perspective on phonological phenomena, emphasizing the connection between the language structure, and its actual use exactly in our everyday communication. So remember, that different theories have been influential at different times and have contributed to our understanding of how the sounds of language are organized and processed. So, uh, in my next lecture, I'll be delving into the human vocal tract, no? With all these drawings now will be highlighted and verbosely discussed. So keep track because more of your favorite topics in phonology will come also for a verbose discussion. Thank you and goodbye everyone.